Hello and welcome back here. We're going to have a conversation that's going to look like another primer on non-duality. What is meant by that? Well, there is no separation of any kind. There is only perfect oneness. God is. In other words, only God is. In the end, there are no opposites. There's no separation of any kind, period. So, faced with that simplicity, when we're used to complicating everything, and let's face it, here in the world, that's exactly what we do, is we heap tasks upon ourselves. Anyone looked at their calendar yet today? We heap frustration on ourselves. We heap a mountain of activity, a burdening load of excess activity and frustration characterizes what we call life here on this spinning ball of rock. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. The beautiful reality is that truth is uncomplicated. It's very simple. It's disarmingly simple, emphasis on disarmingly. And it's so basic, so true, that we won't allow ourselves to go there. Quite honestly, we don't allow ourselves to experience truth. We don't allow it to be just as it is, believing that it's got to be more complicated. It can't possibly be this simple. What do you mean God is? I have to explain that in thousands and thousands of words. This is what we think. Well, we'll say some more about it, but this is the essence of it. Here at the conclusion of this section of the text, chapter 8, section 6 here, the section called The Treasure of God. In the last video, we took a look at the famous saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and recast it in light of A Course in Miracles and non-duality. What happens in Vegas never happened. What happened in your hometown, if it's not Las Vegas, never happened either. And none of this ever happened because ideas leave not their source. So today, as we wrap up, the primer on non-duality comes from the repeated assertion in different words every time for those of us who need to hear it in different ways, which pretty much is all of us. Different way on a different day. The 8,000th time we hear the idea that there is only perfect oneness may, in fact, be the day when it really, really penetrates and sinks in, and you have one of those moments that we refer to as a revelation or an aha moment or something deep and penetrating. Maybe that's going on for you right now, and I hope it is. Yeah, I hope it really is. There is no separation of any kind. There are not two of us. There are not 8 billion of us. A non-dual means not two. One, in other words. And it also means not 8 billion, not 7,976,000,000, however many of these things appear to be running around here on this spinning ball of rock, which incidentally is not our home. Let's be very glad that's the case. There are not 8 billion of us. There is only perfect oneness. because there's no separation of any kind, and only God is, there is only God. Guess what? You're one with him. So am I. So is your worst political enemy. So is your troublesome ex. We all are one. Not two, not 8 billion, one. So, how do we realize this? Well, there is a huge, huge emphasis here placed on allowing. Simply allowing truth to be just as it is, without all of our interference, which is significant, it's substantial. We get in our own way. All that we really need to do is sit back and allow truth to be just as it is. One of the most powerful prayers, one of the most powerful requests that you could ever make on the spiritual path is to ask for help. Ask your inner teacher for help in allowing truth to be just as it is. I allow truth to be just as it is. And we mentally, physically, emotionally take a step back and allow it to be just as it is. This decision is yours to make. It is. It's ours to make right now in the present moment. It's a huge component of the experience of God. God is not a person, even though here in the world he's often depicted as a dude, usually with a very, very thick beard and sometimes a happy expression, other times a scowling expression, casting thunderbolts from Olympus, with all of his other god and goddess buddies up there meddling in human affairs, coming down and sleeping with some people and currying favor with some people while rejecting others and casting them into slavery or a pit full of snakes or something nasty like that. That's not the way it is. God is fact, capital F. Only God is. Truth simply is. Reality simply is. And what we're doing when we step back and allow ourselves to experience truth, to allow truth to be just as it is we're dropping the ego. We're setting it aside. We're saying that all of our attempts at manipulating phenomena, at controlling our experience, whether you think of yourself as a control freak or not, this is all of our experience. We attempt to order and control and orchestrate all compound phenomena, trying to bend everything to our own little ego will and have it arranged just so. Well, how's that working out for you? Are you constantly happy all the time? You may be really wealthy. All right, great. Now, you may have a cool car or a Mediterranean yacht. And if you do, hit me up, right? We may have all kinds of things in this world, but here in the world, when we identify as this, as an individual, we do not have the peace of God. That identification blocks our experience of our perfect oneness. So what do? Well, we remove the blockages. And your relationship with your inner teacher is paramount here, allowing your inner teacher to show you what to do, what to say, and to whom, and how to say it. Yeah. give over your entire experience. And when you do, you're recognizing that there is no separation of any kind. You're setting the ego aside, and it's a practice, isn't it? Because here in the world, it appears to be a process playing out over time. There is no time. We've never left our source, which is timeless. It's eternal. So, of course, there's no linear time. But here, where we appear to have this experience of one moment blending into the next in what we seem to think is a linear sequence, this process of awakening, as we call it, of waking up or realizing God, of enlightenment, whatever you call disidentifying with the ego, which is what it is, that process appears to take time. So we return to these ideas again and again. That's the purpose of all of this repetition on the path. Here's the deal. There's no separation of any kind, but our thought, being one with God, and our will and God's being the same, our thought is so powerful that, should we choose, we can imprison ourselves, apparently, inside this anatomical structure. Clearly, our biology textbooks in school don't posit this. Yet, you're here because you know this is true. You know that you're at home in God. We know that's why we set out on this thing that we refer to as the spiritual path. That's why we take these first steps in the first place. It's why anyone, regardless of tradition or traditions, is even interested in spirituality and self-inquiry. Because we know deep down who we are, what we are, and where we are, where we belong, not on this spinning ball of rock. We know this deep down. So what we're doing here on the path is we're clearing the barriers to our awareness of this. So God can be experienced. In other words, known. Only experienced and known. We're using the convention of language here to talk about this experience, to talk about the spiritual path, and to point. That's all any spiritual teacher can actually do. It's all anyone can do, is actually point to the truth. It can only be experienced. So we can talk about it all we want. But it's up to each of us, and we all eventually will have the experience of truth. What we can talk about are the conditions of this experience. We must meet the conditions of truth in order to experience it. This is where A Course in Miracles comes in. This is where a series of videos comes in. This is where your practice, your daily practice of this material comes in learning to see things as they are, in setting the ego aside completely, truly forgiving the Son of God, yourself, space, time, the ego, everything that crosses your mind. True forgiveness. In doing this, we set the ego aside. We learn to perceive truly. We learn to see things as they really are. And from there, the experience of truth dawns of itself. Just like that. But first, we must meet its conditions. The experience of truth awakening, enlightenment, flashes of such, whatever you want to call it. The experience of truth is beyond words. It's beyond all concepts. So quite certainly it's beyond language, which we're using here in the dream to communicate with one another. It's very important here in this process, but truth is beyond all of that. We simply experience God. We simply know God. And once we've met the conditions for truth, it dawns of itself. So along the way, the repetition of these ideas helps. There is no separation of any kind. 1 does not equal 2. It does not equal 3 or 8 billion. 1. I invite you to allow the sheer simplicity of that to sink in whatever way this comes across for you in practice. It could be that you simply remind yourself during the day of our perfect oneness. If you're going through the workbook for students here in the course, it's a matter of bringing our awareness and attention back to the idea of the day from the workbook. When you notice yourself distracted in life, judging, upset for any reason, that is an opportunity for forgiveness. Anything that is not wholly joyous is an opportunity for forgiveness. So we return our awareness to this course, to extending love to the Son of God. All of our daily life can be seen as a living, breathing, waking meditation. When we notice ourselves carried away and distracted, we bring our awareness back to the object of meditation, forgiveness of the Son of God. Judging, forgive. Judging, forgive. Talking crap about somebody, forgive. And forgive yourself, always. Remember, there's only perfect oneness. So we repeat, we acknowledge, and then we get up tomorrow and we do the same thing. So along the way, questions are inevitable, and I welcome them. I also welcome any of your comments, even if you'd just like to stop in and say hello. We would love to have you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. This is the subscription button here in the corner of the screen, so feel welcome to click that, join us. What we've got going is a growing community and several videos per week for the sake of consistency, because again, the theme here today is rinse, repeat, practice, practice, practice. There is only perfect oneness. There is only perfect oneness. Repeat after me. There is only perfect oneness. God is. God is. You could get your rosary or mala beads out. God is. God is. Click, 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 click. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You get the point. In this way, we allow truth to be just as it is. And the experience of God dawns of itself. All right. So thank you, as always, for joining me, and I will see you back here again on the next video. Have a great day.